Hey, welcome back everyone for another tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to use the target reporting feature inside of the employee profile. What this allows you to do is to make relationships or observe relationships between certain performance metrics or job objectives, or in other words, look at two goals and see how they're related to one another. Particularly around the activity of a particular objective. So how many phone calls are being made, or how many times you're pivoting to a certain product, or how many households are being quoted, compared to how that really is being impacted by the amount of sales that are being made. Or you can look at a quality objective and say, how good are we at talking to our customers around auto insurance or around life insurance, and is that driving the amount of sales that we're making every month? And so this targeted reporting feature down here, so when you get inside of an employee profile, in this case we're looking at Yasminda, and you were to click on targeted reporting, what this is going to do, it's going to allow you to look at very specific job objectives that you've created and see how they're related to one another from a activity to performance or production relationship, or a quality to production relationship. So the best thing to do is for us just to kind of dig in and start playing around with it to see how it can help. I will preface, or at least provide a sort of not warning, but just an understanding that this feature is not really going to add any value to your ability to manage your business for at least several months until you start using the application. Being that it utilizes trends. It looks at how things have been performing or progressing or degressing over the course of months. And so really getting in there after using the application for a couple of months really isn't going to do much for you. But once you have 3 to 4 to 5 months of data into this thing, into the application, you can start seeing what the relationship is between the activity objectives and production objectives, as well as the quality objectives compared to the production objectives. So I just wanted to preface that this is really a feature that you will not start to see value from until you have a handful of months of data into the application. So that being said, let's jump right in. So here you can create a date range. So if you're looking, the idea is what data date ranges are you looking to draw from? In this case, we're just going to keep what auto-populated in there. This is going to be nearly 2 years of data, but it is going to paint a nice picture for you if just leaving it like that. This allows you to also, you can either create a date range or you can just pick year to date. In this case, I were to pick year to date, it's only going to pull January and February of this year, 2019, the last 3 months. So if you're looking over the course of a quarter, or the last 6 months. If you're really wanting to see trends, improvement, or if you're looking at seeing if there's some regression there that needs to be addressed, then you can pick as big of a date range as you want. And you can see in these two drop-down boxes, it's asking you to select two objectives. And this one is asking to select a primary objective. And these are all objectives that you've created, right? These are goals that you've assigned to particular team members and given them responsibilities to achieve in efforts to try and drive these outcomes for your agency or for your business. And in this case, the primary objective I'm looking at, I'm like, all right, well, let's use raw new auto policies. I want to see how this particular objective, and what this is showing me for Yasminda is in January of 2017, how many raw new auto policies she sold. And here's February, there's March 17, in April of 17, there was 19 that were sold, 21 in May. She had a big month in, looks like June of 2017, so 31. And you can kind of start to see the peaks and valleys of her sales trends. And again, these numbers are synthetic. This is a demo application, and so I would imagine there'd probably be more consistency among your tenured team members. At least that would be the objective. You wouldn't see a lot of these ups and downs that I have in here. Again, these are synthetic numbers. But right now, this is just painting a picture for me. I'm like, okay, so this is what her raw new auto production has looked like over the course of oh man, this is probably about 18 months to 20 months. And now what it's saying is, hey, pick a secondary objective. And you want this objective to be somehow related to what you want to, you're going to want to see a relationship. And so picking something that's completely unrelated to raw new auto production or raw new auto policies won't do you any good. So in this case, I am a big believer that the more households you quote, the more auto sales you're going to make, or the more auto policies you're going to sell. So I want to see if this is a true story. I want to see if this is a true fact. Are her auto policy production numbers being impacted by the number of households she's quoting? And so now I'm going to click on households quoted, and it's going to make a comparison to see if this is in fact true. So you can see there are a couple of outliers here, which is an indication that an outlier just meaning that there's certain months where she's quoting a lot of households. Like in this case, she quoted 126 households, but only made 19 auto sales. But for the most part, if you look at these loops, if you look at these peaks and valleys, so many of them are related, right? You have, they really start getting related towards the tail end of this trend. So you can see that there's a spike, upward spike here, a downward spike there, an upward spike here in both of the objectives. And in this particular case, since we're looking at two objectives, the teal is the raw new auto policies, the red is the households quoted, and then these numbers over here are represented by our representation of the households quoted, so anywhere between 0 to 140. And over here we have these numbers being represented by the number of raw new auto policies that were sold. So here the conversation with Yasminda, with the employee, is like, hey, listen, we've seen a trend. We really need to try and drive your quote volume up. We need to try and find more households, more opportunities to make sales, because what we're finding out is that the more households that you quote, the more auto you're selling. So in your downward months, I mean, look, we can use September of 2017 as really the biggest example here. I mean, she had 2 raw new auto policies sold and really only 17 households quoted. Now, there could be a reason for that, right? She may have taken 2 weeks off that month. We can always look to see if there were any reasons outside of any uncontrollables, really, like to see what really drove such low quote volume. But one of the biggest controlling factors to this particular employee would be, hey, in months where we're not finding you enough activity, enough households to quote, we are seeing you struggle in trying to hit your auto policy production objective. So let's look at these two things. Production is not something we can control. Production is a subsequent result of activity. So the more controllable function for us is how many households you're quoting. Let's find you some more households to quote. However you're generating leads for your office, it might be a message to you that you need to find an opportunity for Claudia or for Yasmin to quote more business. Or it's because she's not self-generating enough opportunity. Maybe she's not making enough phone calls, or she's not making enough pivots. Her follow-up process isn't great. Whatever it might be. But the big outlier, the big takeaway here is, if you want to produce 25 raw new auto a month, then we can reasonably come to a conclusion as to how many households you would need to quote to be able to do that. And that's what this is what this targeted reporting feature allows us to do. Let's do one more just so that you can see. And again, these are your own objectives. You've created these. You created the job objectives. These are not pre-built into the application. You've created these, and it allows you to compare any two job objectives that you've created to one another. And so let's look at 2 more. Let's look at bank loan pivots. Well, let's look at auto loans, auto vehicle loans. So let's look at that one, unless we still have households quoted on here. But we're going to compare that to bank loan pivots. And we'll see if there's a relationship here. Now, bank loan pivot is essentially talking to an existing customer to see if they'd be interested in refinancing their car with our organization, since we do that. And to see if the number of times we actually complete a bank loan pivot, whether it impacts the number of loans we achieve that given month. Now, I know that common sense says that it should, and you're right, it should. That's the pure numbers game philosophy, is it should. The more activity you have, the more sales you should make. But if you're looking to generate a sweet spot and say, hey, if we want 4 loans a month, how many pivots do we need to complete? This reporting feature allows you to determine that based on your employee trends. And so, again, we see very similar peaks and valleys. The more pivots, the more auto loans. The fewer pivots, the fewer auto loans you get. You have a couple of outliers here, right? You had three vehicle loans that were completed in May of 2017 with only 17 pivots. And another outlier here where you had 4 auto loans, 23 pivots. But really, like, the majority of these have pretty similar peaks and valleys as the last one. You have a couple of flat ones, not nearly as consistent as the last one, but still you can make a relationship between those two data points. And let's just look at one more because I want to compare it to a quality piece. I want to see if the number of auto policies we sell. So let's go back to raw new auto policies, and let's compare that to the raw new auto sales process. So now we're comparing the outcome of a sales objective to the quality in which the employees are engaging with the prospect. So let's see if we can find it. Raw new auto process. Here it is. So let's compare that. And what we're comparing here is the number of policies that are sold. So that number is here on the left-hand side in teal, and ranging between 0 to 35. And just follow this teal bar or line graph here, and we're comparing that to the raw new auto sales process. And this is an audit. This is us gauging how effective our team member is in engaging with particular prospects or leads. And again, similar peaks and valleys, particularly here early on. Low quality, low sales. High quality, high sales. You got some outliers, you'll always have those. A couple of those, you have an outlier here in May. And this outlier might be done because there may have not been any audits completed, so you'll have to check that. But ultimately, you'll be able to gauge whether or not sales are impacted by how great the soft skills are of your particular sales force. So that's basically how you run a targeted reporting. We do not have the ability to do that from an organizational level yet, meaning you can't do your entire team at once. You got to go into each individual profile and gauge their effectiveness. And that's really what the application is designed to do anyway. This is a coaching and development application. It's designed for you to have meaningful and impactful conversations and discussion, dialogue with your team members. And that really means you looking at their individual effectiveness as opposed to team effectiveness. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. This is a really cool feature. I hope that you guys use it. And again, I'll say it one more time, this is not something you can use effectively until you have several months of data built into the application. All right, and that's it.